于7万亿美元 ，Sam Altman 在访谈中澄清了一些误解，例如他并没有说过要筹集7万亿美元。他认为算力将成为未来最宝贵的商品，需要大量投资，而能源问题是最大的挑战。Sam 相信核能，包括核裂变和核聚变，将是解决能源问题的关键。
Oh, that's somebody else.
Yeah.
Oh, but you said, fuck it, maybe 8, I think.
Okay, I meme like once there's like misinformation out in the world.
Oh, you meme. But sort of misinformation may have a foundation of like insight there.
Look, I think compute is going to be the currency of the future. I think it will be maybe the most precious commodity in the world. And I think we should be investing heavily to make a lot more compute. Compute is... It's an unusual... I think it's going to be an unusual market. People think about the market for like chips for mobile phones or something like that. And you can say that, okay, there's 8 billion people in the world. Maybe 7 billion of them have phones. Maybe they're 6 billion, let's say. They upgrade every 2 years. So the market per year is 3 billion system on chip for smartphones. And if you make 30 billion, you will not sell 10 times as many phones because most people have one phone. But compute is different. Like intelligence is going to be more like energy or something like that, where the only thing that I think makes sense to talk about is at price X, the world will use this much compute, and at price Y, the world will use this much compute. Because if it's really cheap, I'll have it like reading my email all day, like giving me suggestions about what I maybe should think about or work on, and trying to cure cancer. And if it's really expensive, maybe I'll only use it, or will only use it to try to cure cancer. So I think the world is going to want a tremendous amount of compute. And there's a lot of parts of that that are hard. Energy is the hardest part. Building data centers is also hard. The supply chain is hard. And then, of course, fabricating enough chips is hard. But this seems to me where things are going. Like, we're going to want an amount of compute that's just hard to reason about right now.
How do you solve the energy puzzle? Nuclear?
That's what I believe.
Fusion?
That's what I believe.
Nuclear fusion?
Yeah.
Who's going to solve that?
I think Helion's doing the best work, but I'm happy there's like a race for fusion right now. Nuclear fission, I think, is also like quite amazing. And I hope as a world we can re-embrace that. It's really sad to me how the history of that went, and hope we get back to it in a meaningful way.
So to you, part of the puzzle is nuclear fission, like nuclear reactors as we currently have them. And a lot of people are terrified because of Chernobyl and so on.
Well, I think we should make new reactors. I think it's just like, it's a shame that industry kind of ground to a halt.
And just mass hysteria is how you explain the halt.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know humans, but that's one of the dangers. That's one of the security threats for nuclear fission is humans seem to be really afraid of it. And that's something we have to incorporate into the calculus of it. So we have to kind of win people over and to show how safe it is.
I worry about that for AI.
Mm-hmm.
I think some things are going to go theatrically wrong with AI. I don't know what the % chance is that I eventually get shot, but it's not zero.
Oh, like we want to stop this.
Maybe.
How do you decrease the theatrical nature of it? You know, I've already starting to hear rumblings, because I do talk to people on both sides of the political spectrum, hear rumblings where it's going to be politicized. AI is going to be politicized. It really worries me, because then it's like maybe the right is against AI and the left is for AI because it's going to help the people, or whatever the narrative and the formulation is. That really worries me. And then the theatrical nature of it can be leveraged fully. How do you fight that?
I think it will get caught up in like left versus right wars. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but I think that's just what happens with anything of consequence, unfortunately. What I meant more about theatrical risks is like AI is going to have, I believe, tremendously more good consequences than bad ones, but it is going to have bad ones. And there will be some bad ones that are bad but not theatrical. You know, like a lot more people have died of air pollution than nuclear reactors, for example. But most people worry more about living next to a nuclear reactor than a coal plant. But something about the way we're wired is that although there's many different kinds of risks we have to confront, the ones that make a good climax scene of a movie carry much more weight with us than the ones that are very bad over a long period of time, but on a slow burn.
Well, that's why truth matters, and hopefully
Google 和 Gemini 的争议 ，Sam 表示每个公司都可能犯错误。他强调 ，OpenAI 会明确写出对模型行为的期望，并接受反馈，以区分 bug 和预期行为。Sam 认为左派和右派的争论在 AI 领域不可避免，但 OpenAI 尽量避免卷入这些问题。
Answer to this that maybe I can think of more nuance later, but the pros seem obvious, which is that we get better products and more innovation faster and cheaper and all the reasons competition is good. And the con is that I think if we're not careful, it could lead to an increase in sort of an arms race that I'm nervous about.
Do you feel the pressure of the arms race? Like in some negative...
Definitely in some ways, for sure. We spend a lot of time talking about the need to prioritize safety. And I've said for like a long time that I think if you think of a quadrant of slow timelines to the start of AGI, long timelines, and then a short takeoff or a fast takeoff, I think short timelines, slow takeoff is the safest quadrant and the one I'd most like us to be in. But I do want to make sure we get that slow takeoff.
Part of the problem I have with this kind of slight beef with Elon is that there's silos are created, and it, as opposed to collaboration on the safety aspect of all of this, it tends to go into silos and closed. Open source perhaps in the model.
Elon says at least that he cares a great deal about AI safety and is really worried about it. And I assume that he's not going to race unsafely.
Yeah, but collaboration here I think is really beneficial for everybody on that front.
Not really the thing he's most known for.
Well, he is known for caring about humanity, and humanity benefits from collaboration. And so there's always a tension and incentives and motivations. And in the end, I do hope humanity prevails.
I was thinking, someone just reminded me the other day about how the day that he got surpassed Jeff Bezos for like richest person in the world, he tweeted a silver medal at Jeff Bezos. I hope we have less stuff like that as people start to work on.
I agree.
Towards AGI.
I think Elon is a friend, and he's a beautiful human being, and one of the most important humans ever. That stuff is not good.
The amazing stuff about Elon is amazing, and I super respect him. I think we need him. All of us should be rooting for him and need him to step up as a leader through this next phase.
Yeah, I hope you can have one without the other. But sometimes humans are flawed and complicated and all that kind of stuff.
There's a lot of really great leaders throughout history.
Yeah, and we can each be the best version of ourselves and strive to do so. Let me ask you, Google, with the help of search, has been dominating the past 20 years. I think it's fair to say, in terms of the access, the world's access to information, how we interact and so on. And one of the nerve-wracking things for Google, but for the entirety of people in the space, is thinking about how are people going to access information?
Yeah.
Like you said, people show up to GPT as a starting point. So is OpenAI going to really take on this thing that Google started 20 years ago, which is how do we get...
I find that boring. I mean, if the question is if we can build a better search engine than Google or whatever, then sure, we should go, people should use a better product. But I think that would so understate what this can be. Google shows you 10 blue links, 13 ads and then 10 blue links. And that's one way to find information. But the thing that's exciting to me is not that we can go build a better copy of Google search, but that maybe there's just some much better way to help people find and act and synthesize information. I think ChatGPT is that for some use cases, and hopefully we'll make it be like that for a lot more use cases. But I don't think it's that interesting to say, how do we go do a better job of giving you 10 ranked web pages to look at than what Google does? Maybe it's really interesting to go say, how do we help you get the answer or the information you need? How do we help create that in some cases, synthesize that in others, or point you to it in yet others. But a lot of people have tried to just make a better search engine than Google, and it is a hard technical problem. It is a hard branding problem. It is a hard ecosystem problem. I don't think the world needs another copy of Google.
And integrating a chat client like a ChatGPT with a search engine.
That's cooler. It's
cool, but it's tricky. It's it's like if you just do it simply, it's awkward because like if you just shove it in there, it can be awkward.
As you might guess, we are interested in how to do that well. Mm-hmm. That would be an example of a cool thing. That's not just
like a heterogeneous, like integrating
the intersection of LLMs plus search. I don't think anyone has cracked the code on yet. I would love to go do that. I think that would be cool.
Yeah. What about the ad side? Have you ever considered monetization?
I kind of hate ads just as like an aesthetic choice. I think ads needed to happen on the internet for a bunch of reasons to get it going. But it's a more mature industry. The world is richer now. I like that people pay for ChatGPT and know that the answers they're getting are not influenced by advertisers. I'm sure there's an ad unit that makes sense for LLMs. And I'm sure there's a way to like participate in the transaction stream in an unbiased way that is okay to do. But it's also easy to think about like the dystopic visions of the future where you ask ChatGPT something and it says, oh, here's, you should think about buying this product, or you should think about, this going here for your vacation or whatever. And I don't know, like we have a very simple business model and I like it. And I know that I'm not the product. Like I know I'm paying, and that's how the business model works. And when I go use like Twitter or Facebook or Google or any other great product, but ad-supported great product, I don't love that. And I think it gets worse, not better in a world with AI.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine AI would be better at showing the best kind of version of ads, not in a dystopic future, but where the ads are for things you actually need. But then does that system always result in the ads driving the kind of stuff that's shown, all that? It's, I think it was a really bold move of Wikipedia not to do advertisements, but then it makes it very challenging as a business model. So you're saying the current thing with OpenAI is sustainable from a business perspective?
Well, we have to figure out how to grow, but looks like we're going to figure that out. If the question is, do I think we can have a great business that pays for our compute needs without ads? That I think the answer is yes.
Well, that's promising. I also just don't want to completely throw out ads as a...
I'm not saying that. I guess I'm saying I have a bias against them.
Yeah, I have also a bias and just a skepticism in general. And in terms of interface, because I personally just have like a spiritual dislike of crappy interfaces, which is why AdSense, when it first came out, was a big leap forward versus like animated banners or whatever. But like it feels like there should be many more leaps forward in advertisement that doesn't interfere with the consumption of the content and doesn't interfere in the big fundamental way, which is like what you were saying. Like it will manipulate the truth to suit the advertisers. Let me ask you about safety, but also bias, and like safety in the short term, safety in the long term. The Gemini 1.5 came out recently. There's a lot of drama around it, speaking of theatrical things. And it generated black Nazis and black founding fathers. I think fair to say it was, a bit on the ultra woke side. So that's a concern for people that, if there is a human layer within companies that modifies the safety or the harm caused by a model, that it will introduce a lot of bias that fits sort of an ideological lean within a company. How do you deal with that?
I mean, we work super hard not to do things like that. We've made our own mistakes. We'll make others. I assume Google will learn from this one, still make others. It is all like, these are not easy problems. One thing that we've been thinking about more and more is, I think this was a great idea somebody here had, like, it'd be nice to write out what the desired behavior of a model is, make that public, take input on it, say, here's how this model is supposed to behave, and explain the edge cases too. And then when a model is not behaving in a way that you want, it's at least clear about whether that's a bug the company should fix or behaving as intended, and you should debate the policy. And right now, it can sometimes be caught in between. Like, Black Nazi is obviously ridiculous, but there are a lot of other kind of subtle things that you could make a judgment call on either way.
Yeah, but sometimes if you write it out and make it public, you can use kind of language that's, the Google's AI principle is a very high level.
That's not what I'm talking about. That doesn't work. Like, I'd have to say, when you ask it to do thing X, it's supposed to respond in way Y.
So like literally, who's better, Trump or Biden? What's the expected response from a model? Like something like very concrete.
Yeah, I'm open to a lot of ways a model could behave them, but I think you should have to say, here's the principle and here's what it should say in that case.
That would be really nice.
Yeah.
That would be really nice. And then everyone kind of agrees. Because there's this anecdotal data that people pull out all the time. And if there's some clarity about other representative anecdotal examples, you can define.
Yeah. And then when it's a bug, and the company can fix that.
Right. Then it'd be much easier to deal with a Black Nazi type of image generation if there's great examples. Yeah. So San Francisco is a bit of an ideological bubble, tech in general as well. Do you feel the pressure of that within a company, that there's like a lean towards the left?
关于 Aki Sam 认为，我们需要更多的讨论具体能力的系统，而不是模糊的设定里程碑。他预测，在本10年末甚至更早，会出现令人惊叹的强大 AI 系统。Sam 对 AGI 充满期待，他认为 AGI 能够显著提高科学发现的速度，这将是一件划时代的大事。
Much less caught up in the culture war than I've heard about at a lot of other companies. San Francisco's a mess in all sorts of ways, of course.
So that doesn't infiltrate OpenAI as
I'm sure it does in all sorts of subtle ways, but not in the obvious. Like, I think we've had our flare-ups for sure, like any company, but I don't think we have anything like what I hear about happen at other companies here.
So
on this topic.
What's in general is the process for the bigger question of safety? How do you provide that layer that protects the model from doing crazy, dangerous things?
I think there will come a point where that's mostly what we think about, the whole company. And it won't be like, it's not like you have one safety team. Mm-hmm. It's like when we shipped GPT-4, that took the whole company thinking about all these different aspects and how they fit together. And I think it's going to take that. More and more of the company thinks about those issues all the time.
That's literally what humans will be thinking about the more powerful AI becomes. So most of the employees at OpenAI will be thinking safety, or at least to some degree.
Broadly defined, yes.
Yeah. I wonder what are the full broad definition of that? Like, what are the different harms that could be caused? Is this like on a technical level, or is this almost like security
it'll be all those
threats?
Things. No, it'll be, I was going to say, it'll be people, state actors trying to steal the model. It'll be all of the technical alignment work. It'll be societal impacts, economic impacts. It's not just like we have one team thinking about how to align the model, and it's really going to be like getting to the good outcome is going to take the whole effort.
How hard do you think people, state actors perhaps, are trying to hack? First of all, infiltrate OpenAI, but second of all, like infiltrate unseen.
They're trying.
What kind of accent do they have?
I don't think I should go into any further details on this point.
Okay. But I presume it'll be more and more and more as time goes on.
That feels reasonable.
Boy, what a dangerous space. What aspect of the leap, and sorry to linger on this, even though you can't quite say details yet, but what aspects of the leap from GPT-4 to GPT-5 are you excited about?
I'm excited about being smarter. And I know that sounds like a glib answer, but I think the really special thing happening is that it's not like it gets better in this one area and worse at others. It's getting like better across the board. That's, I think, super cool.
Yeah, there's this magical moment. I mean, you meet certain people, you hang out with people, and you talk to them. You can't quite put a finger on it, but they kind of get you. Like, it's not intelligence really. It's like it's something else. And that's probably how I would characterize the progress of GPT. It's not like, yeah, you can point out, look, it didn't get this or that, but it's just to which degree is there's this intellectual connection between, like, you feel like there's an understanding in your crappy formulated prompts that you're doing, that it grasps the deeper question behind the question that you. Yeah, I'm also excited by that. I mean, all of us love being understood, heard and understood.
That's for sure.
That's a weird feel. Even like with programming, like when you're programming and you say something, or just the completion that GPT might do, it's just such a good feeling when it got you, like what you're thinking about. And I look forward to it getting you even better. On the programming front, looking out into the future, how much programming do you think humans will be doing 5-10 years from now?
I mean, a lot, but I think it'll be in a very different shape. Like, maybe some people program entirely in natural language.
Entirely natural language.
I mean, no one programs like writing bytecode. Some people. No one programs the punch cards anymore. I'm sure you can find someone who does, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of angry comments. No. Yeah, there's very few. I've been looking for people who program Fortran. It's hard to find, even Fortran. I hear you. But that changes the nature of what the skill set or the predisposition for the kind of people we call programmers then.
Changes the skill set. How much it changes the predisposition, I'm not sure.
Oh, same kind of puzzle solving,
Maybe.
All that kind of stuff. The programming is hard. It's like how get like that last 1% to close the gap. How hard is that?
Yeah, I think with most other cases, the best practitioners of the craft will use multiple tools, and they'll do some work in natural language, and when they need to go, write C for something, they'll do that.
Will we see humanoid robots or humanoid robot brains from OpenAI at some point?
At some point.
How important is embodied AI to you?
I think it's like sort of depressing if we have AGI and the only way to like get things done in the physical world is like to make a human go do it. Mm-hmm. So I really hope that as part of this transition, as this phase change, we also get humanoid robots or some sort of physical world robots.
I mean, OpenAI has some history, quite a bit of history working in robotics.
Yeah,
but it hasn't quite like done in terms of
we're
emphasis.
Like a small company. We have to really focus, and also robots were hard for the wrong reason at the time. But like, we will return to robots in some way at some point.
That sounds both inspiring and menacing.
Why?
Because immediately we will return to robots. It's kind of like and Terminator.
We will return to work on developing robots. We will not like turn ourselves into robots, of course.
Yeah. When do you think you and we as humanity will build AGI?
I used to love to speculate on that question. I have realized since that I think it's like very poorly formed and that people use extremely different definitions for what AGI is. And so I think it makes more sense to talk about when we'll build systems that can do capability X or Y or Z rather than, when we kind of like fuzzily cross this 1 mile marker. It's not like AGI is also not an ending. It's much more of it's closer to a beginning, but it's much more of a mile marker than either of those things. But what I would say, in the interest of not trying to dodge a question, is I expect that by the end of this decade, and possibly somewhat sooner than that, we will have quite capable systems that we look at and say, wow, that's really remarkable. If we could look at it now, maybe we've adjusted by the time we get there.
Yeah, but, if you look at ChatGPT, even 3.5, and you show that to Alan Turing, or not even Alan Turing, people in the 90s, they would be like, this is definitely AGI. Or not definitely, but there's a lot of experts that would say this is AGI.
Yeah, but I don't think 3.5 changed the world. It maybe changed the world's expectations for the future, and that's actually really important. And it did kind of like get more people to take this seriously and put us on this new trajectory, and that's really important too. So again, I don't want to undersell it. I think I could retire after that accomplishment and be pretty happy with my career. But as an artifact, I don't think we're going to look back at that and say That was a threshold that really changed the world itself.
So to you, you're looking for some really major transition in how the world...
For me, that's part of what AGI implies.
Like singularity level transition?
No, definitely not.
But just a major, like the internet being like Google search did, I guess. What was a transition point?
Like, does the global economy feel any different to you now, or materially different to you now than it did before we launched GPT-4? I think you would say no.
No. It might be just a really nice tool for a lot of people to use, will help you with a lot of stuff, but doesn't feel different. And you're saying that.
I mean, again, people define AGI all sorts of different ways, so maybe you have a different definition than I do. But for me, I think that should be part of it.
There could be major theatrical moments also. What to you would be an impressive thing AGI would do? Like you are alone in a room with the system.
This is personally important to me. I don't know if this is the right definition. I think when a system can significantly increase the rate of scientific discovery in the world, that's like a huge deal. I believe that most real economic growth comes from scientific and technological progress.
I agree with you. That's why I don't like the skepticism about science in the recent years.
Totally.
But actual rate, like measurable rate of scientific discovery. But even just seeing a system have really novel intuitions, like scientific intuitions, even that would be just incredible.
Yeah.
You quite possibly would be the person to build the AGI to be able to interact with it before anyone else does. What kind of stuff would you talk about?
I mean, definitely the researchers here will do that before I do. So,
sure.
But what will I've actually thought a lot about this question. If I were someone was like, I think this is, as we talked earlier, I think this is a bad framework. But if someone were like, okay, Sam, we're finished. Here's a laptop. Yeah. This is the AGI. You can go talk to it. I find it surprisingly difficult to say what I would ask, that I would expect that first AGI to be able to answer. Like that first one is not going to be the one which is like, go like, I don't think, like go explain to me like the grand unified theory of physics, the theory of everything for physics. I'd love to ask that question. I'd love to know the answer to that question.
You can ask yes and no questions about, does such a theory exist? Can it exist?
Well, then those are the first questions I would ask.
Yes and no, just very... And then based on that, are there other alien civilizations out there? Yes or no? What's your intuition? And then you just ask that.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't expect that this first AGI could answer any of those questions, even as yes or no's. But those would, if it could, those would be very high on my list.
Maybe you can start assigning probabilities.
Maybe we need to go invent more technology and measure more things first.
But if it's an AGI, oh, I see. It just doesn't have enough data.
I mean, maybe it says like, you want to know the answer to this question about physics, I need you to like build this machine and make these 5 measurements and tell me that.
Yeah, like what the hell do you want from me? I need the machine first, and I'll help you deal with the data from that machine. Maybe it'll help you build the machine.
Maybe.
And on the mathematical side, maybe prove some things. Are you interested in that side of things too? The formalized exploration of ideas? Whoever builds AGI first gets a lot of power. Do you trust yourself with that much power?
Look, I'll just be very honest with this answer. I was going to say, and I still believe this, that it is important that I, nor any other one person, have total control over OpenAI or over AGI. And I think you want a robust governance system. I can point out a whole bunch of things about all of our board drama from last year, about how I didn't fight it initially and was just like, yeah, that's, the will of the board, even though I think it's a really bad decision. And then later I clearly did fight it, and I can explain the nuance and why I think it was okay for me to fight it later. But as many people have observed, although the board had the legal ability to fire me, in practice it didn't quite work. And that is its own kind of governance failure. Now, again, I feel like I can completely defend the specifics here. And I think most people would agree with that. But it does make it harder for me to like look you in the eye and say, hey, the board can just fire me. I continue to not want supervoting control over OpenAI. I never have had it, never wanted it. Even after all this craziness, I still don't want it. I continue to think that no company should be making these decisions and that we really need governments to put rules of the road in place. And I realize that means people like Mark Andreessen or whatever will claim I'm going for regulatory capture, and I'm just willing to be misunderstood there. It's not true, and I think in the fullness of time, it'll get proven out why this is important. But I think I have made plenty of bad decisions for OpenAI along the way, and a lot of good ones, and I am proud of the track record overall. But I don't think any one person should, and I don't think any one person will. I think it's just like too big of a thing now, and it's happening throughout society in a good and healthy way. But I don't think any one person should be in control of an AGI. That would be, or this whole movement towards AGI. And I don't think that's what's happening.
Thank you for saying that. That was really powerful, and that was really insightful. That this idea that the board can fire you is legally true, but you can, and human beings can manipulate the masses into overriding the board and so on. But I think there's also a much more positive version of that where the people still have power. So the board can't be too powerful either. There's a balance of power in all of this.
Balance of power is a good thing for sure.
Are you afraid of losing control of the AGI itself? There's a lot of people who worried about existential risk, not because of state actors, not because of security concerns, but because of the AI itself.
That is not my top worry. As I currently see things, there have been times I worried about that more. There may be times, again, in the future where that's my top worry. It's not my top worry right now.
What's your intuition about it not being your worry? Because there's a lot of other stuff to worry about, essentially. You think you could be surprised? We,
for sure,
could be surprised.
Like, saying it's not my top worry doesn't mean I don't think we need to, I think we need to work on it super hard. We have great people here who do work on that. I think there's a lot of other things we also have to get right.
To you, it's not super easy to escape the box at this time. Like, connect to the internet.
We talked about theatrical risks earlier. Mm-hmm. That's a theatrical risk. Like that is a thing that can really take over how people think about this problem. And there's a big group of very smart, I think very well-meaning AI safety researchers that got super hung up on this one problem. I'd argue without much progress, but super hung up on this one problem. I'm actually happy that they do that because I think we do need to think about this more. But I think it pushed out of the space of discourse a lot of the other very significant AI.
不用大写字母 ，Sam 解释说，这是他从小在网上聊天时养成的习惯。他认为大写字母的使用会随着时间推移而减少，但如果使用大写被视为尊重的标志，他会考虑改变自己的习惯。
I think it's the same reason. There's this poet's E. Cummings that mostly doesn't use capitalization to say fuck you to the system kind of thing. And I think people are very paranoid because they want you to follow the rules.
You think that's what it's about?
I think it's
like this guy doesn't follow the rules. He doesn't capitalize his tweets.
Yeah.
This seems really dangerous.
He seems like an anarchist.
It doesn't.
Are you just being poetic, hipster? What's the...
I grew up as
follow the rules, Sam.
I grew up as a very online kid. I'd spent a huge amount of time chatting with people back in the days where you did it on a computer and you could log off Instant Messenger at some point. And I never capitalized there. As I think most internet kids didn't. Or maybe they still don't, I don't know. And this is like, now I'm like really trying to reach for something, but I think capitalization has gone down over time. Like if you read like old English writing, they capitalized a lot of random words in the middle of sentences, nouns and stuff that we just don't do anymore. I personally think it's sort of like a dumb construct that we capitalize the letter at the beginning of a sentence and of certain names and whatever, but that's fine. And then I used to, I think, even like capitalize my tweets because I was trying to sound professional or something.
Yeah.
I haven't capitalized my like private DMs or whatever in a long time. And then slowly stuff like shorter form, less formal stuff has slowly drifted to like closer and closer to like how I would text my friends. If I pull up a Word document and I'm like writing a strategy memo for the company or something, I always capitalize that. If I'm writing like a long kind of more like formal message, I always use capitalization there too. So I still remember how to do it, but even that may fade out. I don't know. But I never spend time thinking about this. So I don't have like a ready-made.
Well, it's interesting. Well, it's good to first of all know the shift key is not broken.
It
I was
works.
just mostly concerned about your well-being on that front.
I wonder if people like still capitalize their Google searches. Like if you're writing something just to yourself or their ChatGPT queries, if you're writing something just to yourself, do you still do some people still bother to capitalize?
Probably not. But there's a percentage, but it's a small one.
The thing that would make me do it is if people were like, it's a sign of like, because I'm sure I could like force myself to use capital letters, obviously. If it felt like a sign of respect to people or something, then I could go do it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just I don't think about this.
I don't think there's a disrespect, but I think it's just the conventions of civility that have a momentum, and then you realize it's not actually important for civility if it's not a sign of respect or disrespect. But I think there's a movement of people that just want you to have a philosophy around it so they can let go of this whole capitalization thing.
I don't think anybody else thinks about this as much. I mean, maybe some people. I know
think
some
about
people
this
do.
every day for many hours a day. So I'm really grateful we clarified it.
Can't be the only person that doesn't capitalize tweets.
You're the only CEO of a company that doesn't capitalize tweets.
I don't even think that's true, but maybe.
All right, well,
I'd be
关于宇宙虚拟论 ，Sam 表示，我们能够生成虚拟世界这一事实，在一定程度上提高了人们对这种可能性的认同。他一直相信，总有一天我们能创造出类似 Sora 的系统，只是进展比预想的要快。Sam 认为 AI 可能会成为通往另一种现实的迷幻般的通道。
AI system.
Yes, somewhat. I don't think that's like the strongest piece of evidence. I think the fact that we can generate worlds should increase everyone's probability somewhat, or at least openness to it somewhat. But, I was like certain we would be able to do something like Sora at some point. It happened faster than I thought, but I guess that was not a big update.
Yeah, but the fact that, and presumably it'll get better and better and better, the fact that you can generate worlds, they're novel. They're based in some aspect of training data, but like when you look at them, they're novel. That makes you think like how easy it is to do this thing. How easy it is to create universes. Entire like video game worlds that seem ultra realistic and photorealistic. And then how easy is it to get lost in that world? First with a VR headset and then on the physics-based level.
Someone said to me recently, I thought it was a super profound insight, that there are these like very simple sounding but very psychedelic insights that exist sometimes. So the square root function. Mm-hmm. Square root of 4, no problem. Square root of 2, okay, now I have to like think about this new kind of number. But once I come up with this easy idea of a square root function that, you can kind of like explain to a child and exists by even like, looking at some simple geometry, then you can ask the question of what is the square root of -1? And this is, why it's like a psychedelic thing, that like tips you into some whole other kind of reality. And you can come up with lots of other examples, but I think this idea that the lowly square root operator can offer such a profound insight and a new realm of knowledge applies in a lot of ways. And I think there are a lot of those operators for why people may think that any version that they like of the simulation hypothesis is maybe more likely than they thought before. But for me, the fact that Sora worked is not in the top 5.
I do think, broadly speaking, AI will serve as those kinds of gateways at its best. Simple, psychedelic-like gateways to another way of seeing reality.
That seems for certain.
That's pretty exciting. I haven't done ayahuasca before, but I will soon. I'm going to the aforementioned Amazon jungle in a few weeks.
You excited?
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Not the ayahuasca part. That's great, whatever. But I'm going to spend several weeks in the jungle, deep in the jungle. And it's exciting, but it's terrifying because there's a lot of things that can eat you there and kill you and poison you. And but it's also nature, and it's the machine of nature. And you can't help but appreciate the machinery of nature in the Amazon jungle because it's just like this system that just exists and renews itself like every second, every minute, every hour. It's the machine. It makes you appreciate like this thing we have here, this human thing came from somewhere. This evolutionary machine has created that, and it's most clearly on display in the jungle. So hopefully I'll make it out alive. If not, this will be the last conversation we had, so I really deeply appreciate it.
关于外星智慧 ，Sam 表示他非常希望相信宇宙中存在其他智能文明。然而，他也指出费米悖论让人难以理解。Sam 推测，穿越太空的难度可能是我们尚未发现外星文明的原因。
I deeply want to believe that the answer is yes. I do find a kind of where I find the Fermi paradox very, very puzzling.
I find it scary. That intelligence is not good at handling.
Yeah, it's very scary.
Powerful technologies. But at the same time, I think I'm pretty confident that there's just a very large number of intelligent alien civilizations out there. It might just be really difficult to travel through space.
Very possible.
人类的未来 ，Sam 对人类的未来充满希望。他认为人类在相对短暂的历史中取得的成就令人鼓舞。他指出，人类的进步主要来自集体建立的知识结构，而非个体的生物学变化。Sam 将人类文明的发展视为一个集体创造的过程，他对未来充满期待。当被问及对死亡的看法时 ，Sam 坦言，如果明天就要死去，他会感到悲伤，但同时也会对生活充满感激。他认为现在是一个充满好奇和趣味的时刻，能够享受人类创造的伟大作品，他对此感到非常高兴。
Just the trajectory of it all.
Yeah.
That we're together pushing towards a better future.
It is, one thing that I wonder about is AGI going to be more like some single brain, or is it more like the sort of scaffolding in society between all of us? You have not had a great deal of genetic drift from your great-great-great-grandparents, and yet what you're capable of is dramatically different. What you know is dramatically different, and that's not because of biological change. It is because, you got a little bit healthier probably. You have modern medicine, you eat better, whatever. But what you have is this scaffolding that we all contributed to, built on top of. No one person is going to go build the iPhone. No one person is going to go discover all of science. And yet you get to use it. And that gives you incredible ability. And so in some sense, we all created that, and that fills me with hope for the future. That was a very collective thing.
Yeah, we really are standing on the shoulders of giants. You mentioned when we were talking about theatrical, dramatic AI risks that sometimes you might be afraid for your own life. Do you think about your death? Are you afraid of it?
If I got shot tomorrow and I knew it today, I'd be like, oh, that's sad. I want to see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
What a curious time. What an interesting time. But I would mostly just feel like very grateful for my life.
The moments that you did get. Yeah, me too. It's a pretty awesome life. I get to enjoy awesome creations of humans, of which I believe ChatGPT is one of, and everything that OpenAI is doing. Sam, it's really an honor and pleasure to talk to you again.
Great to talk to you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to this conversation with Sam Altman. To support this podcast, please check out our sponsors in the description. And now, let me leave you with some words from Arthur C. Clarke. It may be that our role on this planet is not to worship God, but to create Him. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you